All right, so what I'm going to discuss today is empowering students as co-designers. And I'm going to go over particularly multimodal assessments as a way of empowering equity and engagement in particular. So I'm going to cover UDL principles, student submissions and interviews, and I'm going to finish up by talking about peer review and some in-class workshopping. So first off, if we could go to this Menti, so you can go to Menti and join with that code, that would be fantastic. Um, and I want to ask you guys, just to get an idea of your experiences of multimodal assessments, and what that might mean to you. What kind of assessment modes have you used before, either when you've been a teacher or a student in your classes? So it might be, that you've written essays, it might be that you've done presentations, you might have submitted videos, you might have done prac assessments where you've actually had to um, uh, do some sort of actual practical thing. So what are the kinds of assessments that you've used either as a teacher or as a student in your classes? And if you can send them up in the Menti, that would be fantastic.
Yes, please, if you'd like to put your assessment modes that you used before into chat, we
Yes,
can collate
fantastic.
those.
Okay, so we've got yep, code doesn't work. Yes, thank you, thank you. Role plays, yeah, great. Okay, so role plays is part of assessment, presentations, pitch, scenarios, work integrated learning, videos, great. Okay, so we've got lots of different things. Short answer, video recordings, poster presentations. Fantastic. So you guys are using lots of different kinds of multi versions of your assessments already. That's amazing. So, oral power presentations, video presentations, essays, quizzes, grid dreaded group work, absolutely. Teaching a lesson on a newly learnt topic. Yeah, great. So they had to actually go and teach something. Fantastic. Um, okay, so let's go back here to the slideshow. All right. So in this that I'm presenting today, the assessment that I gave this student was multimodal. So that meant I gave them a choice, really, of whatever they could dream up and how they wanted to present the work from. It was the final assessment of the semester, and I gave them choices of like a traditional essay, a photo essay, or a non-conventional multimedia project. So I said, you could be a podcast, it could be a film, it could be a video, a website, or a creative work. Really, it was up to them how they wanted to figure out how they want to present their learning from the semester. So all of those different ideas that you guys just had, but I said, okay, you've got the choice. We've had done some assessments previously. They'd done presentations. They'd done sort of scaffolded drafts of things. They'd done project outlines. They'd done a written assessment. So now in this final one, I was saying, okay, you've got some choices now. How do you want to pitch something to me? And again, we're not going to be able to use this Menti, but we can use the chat in the Zoom. Because I wanted you guys to predict how you think this kind of mode might work if you gave this kind of choice to your assessments. So we were going to use the Menti to rank these, but maybe just in the chat put in, you can just put in a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, what you think is the most likely outcome for what you think would happen. So 1 would be they'll love it and create amazing things. 2 would be that most would choose the traditional essays anyway. 3 will be that they'll need lots of scaffolding and a very clear rubric. 4 will be that their submissions will be of poor quality. And 5 will be something else. And you could could type into the chat what you think their what you think their what you think would be the other thing that would happen. So I've just gone out so I can see in the chat what your answers would be. So lots of you think 5. Sorry, lots of you think 3. So they'll need lots of scaffolding and a very clear rubric. Absolutely. They'd love it, but need a clear rubric. Yep, absolutely. 3, 1, and 2. Yep. 3, but hopefully 1. Yep. I've got 1, 5. What was the 5? What did you think would happen if you thought it was 5? The students may surprise you. Yeah, absolutely. So you guys are really, really good at guessing, um, because that is exactly what I found um, a lot of 1, 2, and 3. A lot did choose traditional essays anyway because they didn't have any ideas of what else they could do and they weren't comfortable or familiar with doing anything else. Lots and lots did choose other things and did amazing stuff with the other things they chose. Um, they did need a lot of scaffolding and a lot of different points along the way that supported them in choosing different things and did them very clear rubrics about the different options. And there were lots of check-ins, both peer support and me supporting them along the way. So all of those things. And yes, definitely they did surprise me in number 5. So as you guys have probably already guessed, UDL considerations so that this serves were that it optimized choice and autonomy. It cultivated multiple ways of knowing and making meaning, and that was very much part of something that I explicitly stated to them. I gave them readings about how we were making new ways of understanding knowledge in the academy. And so they were producing new forms of knowledge and new ways of expressing knowledge, not just the kind of traditional essay, but new ways of doing knowledge. Using multiple media for communication, building fluencies and graduated support for practice and performance. So literally, actually performing knowledge in different ways as well. Addressing biases related to modes of expression and communication, and nurturing joy and play. And that was a lot of the feedback I got from students as well. They just found it really fun and playful, and they loved being able to be playful in the classroom. So rather than hear from me my thoughts on exactly how it went, we have some fantastic videos from 2 of the students who were in the class, Rebecca and Joseph, telling us their thoughts on it that were taken by Alessandra, who is here with us today. And I also have one of the examples. These are 2 examples from the photo essay from Rebecca, who we will hear from. So they were photos that were in her essay. She did um, it's a social sciences subject. So she did an ethnographic site study of Parramatta Square. And then Joseph did an autoethnographic film, so I can show you a little clip from his film as well. So we'll start with hearing from Joseph and Rebecca. So this is particularly why I had to run it from my computer, because if we tried to log in elsewhere, this would have been quite tricky to get into. So I'm just going to play a little clip from Joseph to begin with, so you can hear from him.
Giving the student the ability to tell or to answer a question in the language of their choosing, I think is very equitable. It's a great way to still be able to get the same knowledge or assess the same knowledge from people, but just kind of seeing how they've interpreted it. It's almost easy to read something and then reinterpret it and regurgitate it in more writing. It's another thing altogether, I think, to read something and then try to capture it in visually, because I'm trying to convey that knowledge in such a different format that I'm used to, or that I'm used to for that kind of assessment. It meant that I had to really almost break stuff down and reorganize it in my brain before I could even then look at the footage that I had and try to figure out what does that, or how do those bits go together to say what I want to say.
Okay, so I'm going to skip a little bit to where Joseph's talking about the scaffolding and the peer review system that helped him prepare. That's me, you don't need to hear me more. Here we go.
Like a partnering process, I think, that we would talk to someone else and, you know, see how they were going with their project. And then we also had a check in with Karen. So those kind of like things as part of the assessment process were really helpful, that to make us feel comfortable, to let us know that what we were doing was fitting within what was trying to be assessed. And I think the good thing with the peer review, were because we were matched up with someone, we were able to then we're able to keep in contact with them outside of like that first initial review of each other's work. That was a very nice part of the assessment, because it meant that we had that kind of support, even though we weren't writing about the same things and we weren't even writing in the same kind of formats. It was nice to be able to check in and have that support in, and like that I feel like you might not get as easily if you were just, you know, here's your essay to write and just do it.
Okay. So then we're going to go to Joseph's film. Just so I can show you a little bit of what he actually produced. And here he gets a little bit into the weeds of like the actual theory that he's using. But I wanted to show you the opportunities that the medium had for really being self-reflexive for Joseph. So it's not so much important kind of how he's talking about the theory so much as how he's able to use the medium to do what he talks about, breaking down some of the concepts. I was going to show you the clip from Joseph's film. I can't, that computer's just died on me, which is why I wasn't trying to use that computer in the first place.
That's okay. Look, I've put the link in there for everybody so they can watch the full thing of his film, etc. I think you had it about 3 minutes 30 mark if somebody wants to pick up with the bit.
Yeah, I was going to play from 7 minutes and 5 seconds to 8 minutes and 45 seconds. If anyone wants to see Joseph talking beautifully about self-reflexivity. Okay, so okay. Would anyone like to share the slides again for me?
Let me just see. I'll try and grab those.
I'm not sure if we can get back into Rebecca's videos now.
No, they do need a login.
Yes. So that's a shame when we're running out of time. We're down to 2 minutes of time now. I'm so sorry. This has been such a fiasco.
Yes, that's right. Sorry, look, rather than the slides, I might just quickly, your next slide was about peer review and in-class workshopping.
Yes, fantastic. So Rebecca's video, which I hope somehow we can share to you, what is a beautiful example where she talks about how valuable she found the peer review process and being able to collaborate with other students, because she found it incredibly useful learning from other students rather than just learning from the teacher. And she found it very valuable having her own opinions so well respected. And she's actually taken that into her workplace now, where she's part of a research team as a market researcher, and she's learnt, you know, how important it is to collaborate and learn from her team. So it's a really good example of how it's part of an authentic learning process. And so I have slides there on sort of the peer review process, how not only it's about UDL, but it also is about, you know, helping students learn collaboration for how it becomes part of their working lives. I'm completely out of time now, and I'm so sorry, everybody.
That's all right. That's all right. Thank you, Karen. Look, I'm having issues loading it up at the minute, so that's all right. We've only got a minute. I'll just leave that. Look, the next thing you wanted to touch on was certainly UDL considerations that were in there when you're doing these. So what are some of those considerations that we should be aware of?
Sorry, we'll have to wrap it up
okay.
and move to questions. And I think this is a beautiful example of collaboration because we've got Darren, we've got all the people in the room who formed a spontaneous community of practice, as Sarah noticed while we were waiting for all the tech to sort of happen. So I think you've got to the essence of what you wanted to say. And I just want to open the floor to questions now. If anyone wants to put some on the Slido, and then people can ask specifically what they're wanting to know about all the good work that you're talking about. So if we've got the Slido, slido.com, the code 4777987 to add your questions. So Darren, would you like to read them out or would you like me to?
If you can, because I'm trying to find them. Hang on, no, I found them.
Okay, so Karen Ann, do you view co-design as part of scaffolding throughout the assessment process, or is it only at the beginning? And how does this influence the development of the marking rubrics or a student charter for group assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. Co-design happens throughout. Like from before you ever meet the students to the first time you meet them to, you know, every point that you're just to talking to them to you know, all the discussions. I mean, this class was a fantastic example where they would come up with these new ideas of things that I could do to make their lives easier, you know, and make my life easier as well. Things like there was a huge number of, there's like 90% international students in this class. And they came up with the idea of like sorting themselves into groups based on their home languages, so that when they were talking to each other, they'd have their home language, you know, pairings that they could discuss in, and then they would, you know, report back to the class in English. But you know, it was just easier for them to feel more comfortable with each other, to be able to not have to kind of stumble through English talking to other people. So they built those communities of practice and brought that. You know, we collaborated on making that easier for them. So there were lots of different ways. And Rebecca talks about this in her video as well. She was saying, you know, she loved being able to experiment in this class. And she's like, and sometimes the experiments didn't work, and that was okay too, you know, but she loved having that opportunity to just experiment in academia and not be told exactly how everything was going to happen, that there was a breakdown of the hierarchy where she got to tell me how things were going to happen too.
Thank you so much. Got time for probably two more, and here's one of them. Do you think your organisation would have gone on this journey without the push from AHRC? Oh, sorry, this is from a previous session.
Yeah.
Yep, that's better. Sorry. Okay, could you describe the course content for the student video testimonial? And do you find that initiatives like this are more challenging to implement in science technology-based courses compared to arts or communication courses? I think this will be our last question.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. It's a social sciences, like cultural studies course. I think the principles could stand. So I work in both cultural studies and School of Psychology. So I'm actually in both Faculty of Arts and Faculty of Sciences. And this was an in-person class, but I've been using the principles of UDL in the School of Psychology as well. And what's really interesting is this was a postgraduate class, and I was wondering how applicable it would be in undergraduate as well. And my School of Psychology stuff is undergraduate as well. And while there is more scaffolding that needs to happen, it's definitely very applicable in terms of like making modes of communication really variable and giving lots of options. I think there's still more scaffolding that has to happen in terms of assessment. I think opening it up really widely, like as widely as I did for the creative option for the assessment, would be a little bit overwhelming at the undergraduate level, in those other faculties, and even in arts as well, actually. But not necessarily, like, you know, you could give them like a portfolio option and still have, you know, videos and podcasts and like that kind of thing, but you just have to give them enough kind of, these are the activities you'd have to satisfy, and maybe, you know, there could be different parts of the activity that were different parts of it, like just enough broken down so that it could be not one huge chunk that was going to be a massive film or whatever. I still think it can work in different disciplines.
Thank you.
I hope that
Sharon.
answers the question.
All the questions. We'll have to wrap it up.